everybody? It's your girl Angela for another episode of the Come and Talk to Me Show. Today we have the multi-hyphenated Lance here to talk to us. Lance is my cousin. Lance is my brother. Lance is the Reverend Lance. Lance is the community guy Lance. Lance knows everybody in Los Angeles Lance.
Just Los Angeles?
Lance knows everybody. Thank you for coming to talk to me today. So, you told me you're an open book.
I'm an open book.
I have questions about things in our past that I've never asked you before. If that's okay.
I'm good.
Okay. So, one of the things that I wanted to discuss, your mother passed away when you were young, when you were 13. I was 10. The crazy part is, like, I vividly remember this day. To this day. I remember, I used this day as a point of reference to a lot of things. So it was on a Sunday. It was after church. We were visiting, back in the day, people would go visit after church and visit other people. So we were visiting some church people. We were at the Greens. Yep, Jinx. So we were at the Greens.
Pt.1, Minnesota.
And my mother got the call. But they told her not to say anything. And also not to bring you yet. So we were there for probably another hour or two before we left, and then we went to Aunt Edna's house.
Correct.
So one of the things that I've learned, there's many things that I learned. One, I think that my protectiveness of you increased that day, obviously, because I didn't learn till after you learned when we were at Aunt Edna's house, and I remember your reaction, and then I found out, and there's certain things like your mom was also my favorite aunt, because just as much as you were at our house, we were at, at you guys' house, and Rosie used to give me cereal when my mom said I couldn't have cereal.
And what else?
What else?
Your favorite at that time?
What?
Jelly sandwiches.
She would make me jelly sandwich. I just remember her sugar, that old school sugar thingy where she would let me pour all the sugar I want in my cereal. And also, she was my mom's favorite aunt. So the thing that I learned about my mother and more bigger about, like, parenting is about how you have to literally put, like, that was my mom's favorite aunt, and she never blinked or wavered. She had to, like, hold all of her emotion in because she had to protect you before she could deal with, like, herself. And I literally use that as, like, a carrot in front of me as I try to, like, maneuver being like a mom. Like, no matter what, I don't care what it is. If I'm scared, I got to put my fear aside because I got to do what I got to do, to make sure, like, my daughter is okay. I don't want to talk about necessarily how it was losing your mom at a young age because obviously we could, figure that part out. But certain stuff. So after that, my mom said you could come live with us. And you turned her down.
I did.
Why did you turn her down? I'm going to tell you why I think, but you tell me why. I was very shocked at that because I just felt like it was like the next natural, like, course.
I think that was the biggest mistake ever.
Think so?
That was the biggest mistake ever. Because one of the things that when I look back on losing my mom, one of the things that we have to understand is at that age, you're really just beginning to identify with who you are in life. So, you're at this very fundamental stage where, you're figuring out, your relationship life. You're figuring out, who you really want to be as a person. And that's when the foundation should be laid. And so because the foundation wasn't laid appropriately, I made a lot of bad decisions. And for a while, I was okay with the bad decisions because at that stage in my life when, I should have had a mom, I should have had a dad, I should have had stability, I really didn't have the stability. And the one thing that I know is that your mom would have provided that stability. And it's no slight on my sister, because she did the best she could. My stepfather, he did the best that he could. But the funny thing is, he made me an interesting promise. Mm. He said, it was maybe about a week after my mom passed, and I remember him saying, he said, I can't promise you after I get out of high school, after you graduate high school, how much longer I'll live.
Oh, wow.
He said, I made your mom a promise. He said, I promised her that I would see you get through high school. And after that, I want to be with her. And we know subsequently, after I graduated high school and I was in basic training, he passed away right after I graduated basic training. So, he kept his promise. But they did the best that they could. But my mom's death shook my sister and him so hard that they were still trying to grapple with life and get things together. And they didn't really have kids to invest in. Where your mom, she had you and Anthony to invest in. So, like you say, that was the most natural course for me to come right alongside. And she kind of guided those three ships together. But I felt like, too, I didn't want to take anything away from the two of you guys. Because I felt like if I would have come in that season, a lot of the attention that you guys needed would have had to be focused on this kid who just lost his mom, so we have to help him. Anthony would have had to share a room. You would have had to share your mom. So it was so many other things that really a 13-year-old shouldn't have to process that I was trying to process on the cuff, Because what was so funny is even the Dawsons made an offer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but, I was just like, no, I'm going to go back and be with my sister. And then a month later, I'm going to go be with my stepdad. So I was kind of, I was a foster child, in a sense, without, really being a foster child. But it built me for today. Yeah. So that's that kind of like bittersweet thing that I always look at, in life, because those decisions made me the man that I am today. Because you learn at 13, when your mom dies, nobody is going to take care of you the way your mom did. So it just made me this businessman / entrepreneur par excellence, and a lot of those skills from then have carried over into my adult life.
I can see that. It's
so why did you think? You said
I think you made some comment that was like, y'all got rules at that house or something. I'm not trying to live where the rules are. I'm trying to go to the other house where I can kind of be a little bit more free. And I wish that you would have really, obviously we talking 13-year-olds and 10-year-olds or whatever, but I don't think that me and Anthony would have felt that way because, you had always, you lived with us anyway, so I don't, it wasn't really going to be too much of a difference, I don't think, that, if that would have happened. But I always wanted to ask you that, and I just never had asked you that. And then, during that time, you had a situation, and your dad, your biological dad, was kind of in and out, and it would be the best way to describe it. I have multiple questions in this realm. One of my questions that I want to talk to you about is just recently, I experienced a dad that wasn't as present as I would have liked him to be, right?
I like that. You experienced a dad. Okay.
That wasn't as present as I would have liked him to be. Mm-hmm. Within the last couple of months, more so, the last year, my understanding of my dad has shifted drastically from what it used to be to what it is now. Which obviously, when you're younger, there is no understanding. There is just what it is. And then, so now it's so I gave, it's you have your progressions, right? So I had my dad's not there, and then I had anger, and then it went into maybe numb or whatever the case may be. I don't know if you know, we had a very big blow up 2 weeks before my wedding. So then I went to this place where for a long time, I had really always, not always, maybe the last 10 years, it's never been I wish, You know, it's just like, it is what it is, right? But so last year, I came to this decision where I didn't want to be, he had a power of triggering me. Like one text, two sentences into one text and it could like set me off. And it'll be something small like, did you get your oil changed? And in my head, do not talk to me like you're my dad. How dare you? Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I wanted to get to a place where I wasn't triggered anymore. Like that was like my goal, right? Like I don't want to be triggered by him, whatever. So now I just recently came to like this, like I did my own therapy to myself. Like I should have
dangerous.
Yeah, I should have a degree. But so what I discovered was I started putting some stuff together, right? About people. Obviously your level of understanding is different as an adult. Like 10-year-old me, 16-year-old me doesn't understand a lot of things. And then I just came to the realization, something he said in that conversation before my wedding, he said, he had made a comment that was like, name a time that you asked me to be there and I wasn't there, right? And so I said, never. Never have I ever asked you to come to something and he didn't show up. And so then he's like, so what's the problem? And I'm like, well, what about Tuesday? And like, you know, all these other days. And then it like hit me. He didn't get it. He never, because in his mind, he's like, every time you ask me to come, I come. And you've always known my phone number and you've always known where I live. So to him, it's like, if you want me, you will call me.
Right.
Does that excuse maybe not being there as much as I would have liked? Absolutely not. Like, you know, there's no excuse for that. But like now I at least understand you weren't trying to not be a good dad to me. You know what I'm saying? Like you were just like you thought you're like, I'm here. Right. Call me. His problem was on the flip side of that, I had a mother who does everything in her power to foreshadow my needs, right? So I have one parent that's like, well, if you want me, you got to come get me. And then I have another parent that's like, it's September. She gonna need a jacket for her daughter in December. Let me buy it now. You know, so I have like, everywhere I turn, my mother is there. Right. And then nowhere I turn, are you there? You know, and I like boiled it down to like my love language is probably acts of service. And I get acts of service repeatedly on one side. And then the one thing I want on this side is probably the one thing you really can't give me.
Right.
So I said all that to say I have like as a parent or even just as an adult a different understanding, and it helped me release like the trigger. Like I don't get angry anymore, you know, and he's been a little bit more active with Emery than he was with me. And I'm always in a place where it's like, I'll meet you halfway. Right. So, you know, like, so now it's like, okay, I can shoot him a picture of Emery or like something like that. Your father, you had, I don't know if I want to say similar, but your dad was like kind of in and out thing. And then he also passed away. Were you able to like reconcile some things before? Because not only did he pass away, you gave the eulogy at his funeral. I was there. How did that like come about in that?
I mean, just listening to your story, I think it mirrors a lot of people, because that story, it shows two things. It shows trauma, number one, and it shows the cycle of depression and grief. And it's easy to grieve a person when they passed away, but it's hard to grieve a person when they're still living. And so, like you said, you had a mom who was a helicopter mom, but you had a dad who was off fishing. And so you had to allow yourself really to go through that grief, but in every bit of grief, there's a bright light that pulls you out. And it sounds like M was your bright light that said, okay, it's okay to actually go through the process, understand. Because the one thing we don't understand is when we are children, the roles of parents and what they had to endure.
Right.
You know, the volatility sometimes, the toxicity of these parental relationships, you know, that cause the strains. And as we become adults, we understand a little bit better. So with my dad was the exact same way. Because I don't even know if you remember, there was never a time that I needed my dad that he wasn't there. There was never a time that I needed something that my dad didn't provide it.
Right.
I mean, I can call and say, Dad, I need $3,000 tomorrow. And even if I didn't lay eyes on him, he took it to my Aunt Etna's house. And she said, hey, your daddy left an envelope over here for you. So he was always that guy. And then I had an excellent relationship with my stepmother. Because that's a whole nother story, how they were married when he passed away. They had been married for 40 years, and I was 35 when he passed away. So, you know, that's a whole nother story.
Right.
You know, and so, did we ever reconcile? Yes, because I was never really angry with my dad. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. I was, you know, because, you know, he had his life. And at a young age, once again, my mom dying, you realize things about people that you shouldn't have to as a child. And I realized he had his own life. And so I accepted him for him. I didn't necessarily want him to be a dad more than I wanted him to be LT. Mm-hmm. And when I accepted him for LT, then I can accept him as a dad.
Right.
And so, you know, with everything that we went through, at the end, you know, I took care of him. Because my dad, violent, you know, he was a horrible temper. Mm-hmm. He was an alcoholic. But there was this uniqueness in our relationship that I can reach him at his lowest points and pull him back. So even when he got sick, you know, they called me to come be there with him, and I was. And they said he was gone. It was, I never forget, it was February the 13th when they called us to the hospital and said, hey, take your dad home because he's going to die. Cuz didn't die till like a year and a half later. Mm-hmm. Like he was on hospice so long, they took him off of hospice. And then he died the following November. But I remember, you know, I talked about it at the funeral. His last words to me was, nigga, go to hell. You know, he was himself, true to himself to the end. And that's what I appreciate about him. And the older I get, I've taken a lot of lessons from him to say, it's okay to be who you are.
Yeah.
Because when you are okay with who you are, everybody else is okay with who you are. It's only when you pretend to be something that you're not that people have a problem with you. And when you say what your dad said, hey, name a time that I was never there, that was him saying, I was okay with the distance, but you weren't okay with the distance.
Right.
And so instead of, you know, him explaining that or you understanding that, it took you time and distance to understand, hey, dad is a person who's okay with distance, but mom is not. And you kind of, you know, we kind of want both parents to be the same. Even in my parental relationship that I have with my children, I understand the dynamics. My wife, she's a helicopter. She's on them. She drills them. I'm kind of like, dude, I'm going to let you grow up. And when you start sprouting, I'll give you the supports to the left and the right so you won't fall over, but I'm not going to hover. Mm-hmm. And but you need that balance. And I think that that's the beauty of having both parents in the house, because you have that balance.
Right.
You know, I can see you probably being the hovering parent and Dame like, yeah, okay, you know, you'll figure it out. But you need that balance to become, you know, the human being that you'll eventually, you know, grow into in life. So I was okay with him. You know, I think about it. It's funny you asked that question, because I just said the other day how much I missed him. I was like, I would love to be able to go by his house, sit in the garage, and just talk crap. Because whenever I wanted to go talk crap with somebody, I go pull up to his house and annoy the hell out of him.
Right.
And dare him to put me out.
Right.
But, you know, so yeah, we reconciled in our own little special way.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me was knowing that he had accepted Christ. And at the end, he did. And so I was okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was okay with that.
So then there was the next, like, so then your brother passes away.
Correct.
Who, Ronnie, I think I was like the apple of his eye. I could be mistaken, but when you and Anthony got too far out of hand,
he brought
Ronnie
it back.
was the one that brought y'all back. Leave that girl alone. Like, he was my protector over you guys, for sure, and my protector out in these streets. I would run into Ronnie in the weirdest, like, when I turned 18, he was like a shadow, but not on purpose. It's not like,
Because he was nuts.
Because he was crazy. And I'll be like I remember I was at the park, back when people would hang out. And this guy trying to talk to me at the park. And I just feel these shadows coming up behind me. I'm just like, I already know. Like, I don't even have to turn around. And it was Ronnie, Eric, and Donald. And they're like, he's like, you trying to talk to my cousin? Like, and he 5'6".
Right.
Like, what are you like?
Right.
And they go running like every time,
as they should have.
And so, and again, you obviously incredible loss, and then you eulogize his funeral too. My overall question is this strength, because that's what it like really boils down to. How have you been able to like sustain, not losing your mind? Don't misunderstand. You are crazy, but you haven't lost your mind. There's a difference. Right. But you know what I'm saying? Like, not losing your mind, having this strength and this power and this, to one, survive this, to keep smiling, and then even just be strong enough and like speak at these like situations.
I think that because you got to remember, so in our family, it was my mom, it was Esther, which was Devin's mom, it was Kevin, and then it was my other brother, my oldest brother, LT. So I think in a process of like 3 years, a lot of my immediate family structure was taken away. This may sound crazy, and I tell people this: where you experience your most pain is also where you find your superpower.
Yeah.
And that is where I found my superpower, and my superpower is aiding people through grief.
Okay.
Which has led me into my newest career venture.
Being a mortician.
With the mortuary. But it has aided me. So yes, those events were painful. Yes, they were traumatic. But as I endured them, I realized that they were my superpower. So it's kind of like when you watch X-Men, and I can't call the character who has the glasses that he wears, and when he lifts them up, these rays come up. Yeah, Scott, they come out of his eyes. But
what is his X-Men name?
Cyclops. So when he's learning, when he first realizes that he has this superpower, he is turned off by it. He's embarrassed by it, because it's caused him nothing but pain and grief. But then he realizes, that wait a minute, this can be used for something more than just causing me pain, but it can be used to help other people.
Right.
And so in all of those losses that I experienced, I understand, wait a minute, there's a different lesson, because even with Ronnie, I was in the room when he took his last breath, because I had to make the decision whether to pull the plug or, to, go through that whole process. But I learned in all of that there was a superpower there to help aid other people through their grief. And so that's kind of like how I've been able to navigate through all of these losses, because, I've lost so many people that were close to me that for a while I was even scared to get close to people, because I was like, well, if I get close to somebody, they die.
Yeah.
So I didn't even really want to form these interpersonal relationships for, a few seasons in my life, because I was really tired of losing people. And I mean, I went through the whole depression cycle, the anger, the frustration, the suicidal thoughts. I mean, just the low places where I really didn't want to live. And I, developed weird addictions and things like that. But it was, it was nothing but the grace of God that said to me, I think about it all the time, Romans 8, where he talks about, for I consider not that these present day sufferings are worthy of the glory that will be revealed. And I think that when we get in those types of moments, if we just open ourselves up and embrace the pain of the moment, it turns into something better. Donald Trump.
Oh my God.